Good evening, everyone. I was born Fiza Khan, and I'm standing in front of you as Simran Kohli. That's different to begin with. It's really different. But before I discovered that being different means bringing something unique to the table, bringing something unique to the world, trust me, I had a lot of issues with my differentness. I was born into a slightly dysfunctional family. My mother, Madeline Pant, was a Catholic, and she married my father, Fazle Ahmed Khan. He was a true blue blood Muslim Pathan. She was more than 15 years his junior. It was a love marriage, and she was his second wife. He was married to the first wife, and he did not have any children. So this was a love marriage, and they got married. We had 3 sisters and 1 brother. I'm the eldest, and my brother is the youngest. My mother was 12th pass at that time, and she was teaching in a nursery, in a convent. So when my sister and I, we were born, we were taken to Badi Mummy. Badi Mummy was my dad's first wife, and we used to stay with her. And on weekends, we used to come and visit Choti Mummy. Till 9 years, I was totally confused about who my real mother was. We used to call the real mother auntie, and the first wife Badi Mummy. And then, of course, there was my sister and my younger brother who came, and they used to stay with mom. The family never accepted my mother. My father's family never ever accepted her. Also because he was an IAS officer, so it was a question of prestige. So he never could publicly declare his marriage to my mother. Okay, so the strangeness and everything else ends there. We were brought up like princesses. I was the apple of my father's eye because I was born after nearly a wait of 20 years. And he brought me up, my sisters also. I think that pride in being who I am was instilled in me by my father. Trust me, today also when I read about gender disparity, I really don't know how to identify with it because we had no clue what it was all about. Every time my mother used to say कि इसको kitchen में कुछ खाना बनाने के लिए भेजो, उसे सिखाएं, my father used to say, why? खाना ये क्यों बनाएगी भाई? कोई भी बना सकता है खाना तो. Let her live her life. I remember we were so pampered that once we had gone to see a film and we were around 15-20 minutes late. So my father called the cinema hall owner and the screening was stalled जब तक हम लोग नहीं पहुँचे. At another time the hall was house full, and when we reached तो फिर वो aisle में chairs लगाई गई थी हम लोग के बैठने के लिए. So yeah, so life was fun, life was exciting, except that I didn't know who my real mother was. Okay, so when I discovered who my real mother was and I thought, okay, now let me make up and everything, suddenly our world came crashing down because my father expired. It was a sudden heart attack. I was 14 at that time, and my brother was 4 at that time. And my mother, remember, she was still 12th pass. Because he died suddenly, he had not left any will, any security, any cover, nothing at all. And after his death, suddenly Badi Mummy and her side of the relatives decided they want nothing to do with these children, and we were all dumped onto my mother's head. We shifted into a 1-room apartment, and we stayed there for the next, I think, 10 years, during which time my mother studied, she started working. She joined an NGO. Today she's a respected name in the NGO circle, and single-handedly, with her great determination, she brought us up. So I began this talk by saying different, how different am I? And I had a problem with my differentness. My mother taught me it doesn't matter whether you're different or not. What matters is what difference can you bring to the people around you. So that's where I begin my journey. So naturally, frame of reference, वैसे तो कुछ नहीं था, but because father was an IAS officer, I decided to give civil services a shot. So I cleared the mains, but I could not clear the interview. No heartburn, because I just did it for the heck of it. During that time, I got through Jamia Mass Communication. I came to Delhi, 1995, MA in Mass Communication. I wanted to be a big filmmaker because my mother just wanted me to do something big, something great, to be the apple of the world's eyes. That's what she wanted me to do. So all set to become a very, very famous filmmaker and stuff like that. I come to Delhi in July 95, and then in December 95, I suddenly get through All India Radio, which was not planned at all. It was just like that. I remember calling my mother and she was so upset. She cried. She said, बस अब तुम बड़ी सिटी चले गए. I'm from Lucknow. She said, अब वहाँ की हवा तुम्हें लग गई, अब रेडियो करना है तुम्हें, अब रेडियो पे क्या बोलोगी? And I'll tell you why she cried, because I was one of the worst voices in college for radio. Trust me, my girlfriends used to borrow me to frighten their boyfriends and act like their brother. So I was like this, क्या करता है बे साले मार देंगे. And they used to actually get scared. और मम्मी बताती जब मैं छोटी थी तब भी एक तो आई वॉज अ वेरी सल्की किड बिकॉज आई वॉज सो पैम्पर्ड, तो कोई और किसी को जरा सा भी अटेंशन देता था तो मैं सल्क करने लगती थी. एंड व्हेन आई यूज्ड टू टॉक, मैं किसी से बात नहीं करूंगी, और बाल भी छोटे छोटे कटे रहते थे तो लोग कहते थे किसका लड़का है ये, कौन सा लड़का है, कहाँ जा रहा है. सो आई वॉज नेवर इन टू दैट गर्ल थिंग. ऑल्सो लेट मी टेल यू द ऑल इंडिया रेडियो सिनारियो, शायद अंकल आंटी आपको पता होगा, यहाँ जो लोग बैठे जो रेडियो सुनते हैं, अमीन सयानी साहब के ज़माने का रेडियो. डू यू रिमेंबर एनी वुमेन अनाउंसर्स ऑल इंडिया रेडियो की? कोई नहीं होती थी. जो होती भी थी पार्वती राठौर और पीपल लाइक दैट. ओके, सो दे वर दीज वेरी वेरी डेलिकेट, हेलो नमस्ते कैसे हैं आप, क्या कर रहे हैं, अच्छा खाना खा लिया. एंड देन सडनली देयर इज दिस लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन ऑफ द दिल्ली सिटी, नहा धोकर पाउडर लगाकर आ गए, अबे ढक्कन फोन रख. So this is what I was on air, and trust me, I had a very, very tough time because after every show I was hauled up. There was a lady station director at that point of time. She decided to kill my career and kill me. So I used to get duties at 1 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock at night, and imagine I'm a college student. I'm not even getting transport. But what happened during that time was I suddenly fell in love with radio. The first time I said ladies and gentlemen on the microphone, I knew this is what I wanted to do, but not the kind of radio that was happening at that point of time. I wanted to change it all. So because I wanted to make radio more personal, I wanted to make radio a friend, I wanted to break through the radio barrier which radio had constructed, because I could see beyond that barrier. So I had convictions in that belief and I started working in it. College में I used to be ridiculed by people कि what is wrong with you? You are in one of the premium mass communication colleges and you want to do radio. And understand again, this is 95, 96, 97 when there was no FM on the horizon. But what I dreamed at that point of time, what I fought for what I got screamed at, was soon to become a rage in a new scenario which is called FM radio in 2001 when radio was launched in Delhi. So of course my radio journey began from 2001 to 2017. It was the most amazing journey, and like I told you, standing tall, believing in your convictions. So when if somebody asks me what has been the most important element in your journey, I believe I say convictions. So you all must have heard of this lady called Nadia, Hunter Wali. Suna hai aapne? Mary Ann Evans. She was an Australian. I have been in love with her for I don't know from when, how, where, because she was the film actress, Bombay film actress, the first stunt woman of Bombay industry, and her first film was Hunter Wali, which came in 1935. I wasn't around, but something must have happened that I'm totally in love with that woman. You know, she threw the uptight young Indian actress woman out of the window. She was this tall, blonde, fair, blue-eyed woman. And a very interesting thing happened. She was basically an acrobat in a circus. She used to sing and dance and earn money. And then she met the Wadia brothers for a role in the film. There were 2 conditions put in front of her. And then she would get the role. The first condition was she'll have to wear a black wig. Because imagine an Indian film heroine with blonde hair and blue eyes and Lahim Shahim body. She was like 6'2" and all. She was asked to wear a black hair wig. She said, I refuse to wear it because a fair heroine with blue eyes and black hair doesn't match. I'm not comfortable. Okay. So Homi Wadia later, whom she married, then he said, okay, fine, don't change your hair, change your name. Matlab, what is Nadia? Make it Nanda Devi. So she said, Nanda, I don't like. And Devi, I'm not. So how can I be Nanda Devi? And secondly, Nadia rhymes with Wadia. I think that's where their love affair began. You know, she used to, her finesse was, she used to lift up burly men, villains. You must see some of her old clippings. She used to turn them around and throw them like toys. So ये तो definite scene होता था. जैसे सनी देओल की फिल्म में 2.5 किलो के हाथ का कोई ना कोई सीन होता है, तो नाडिया का हमेशा ये सीन होता था. She said one thing. I will always try anything once. And that stuck with me. So I wanted to try it with radio. Another thing which has really helped me in my journey, something that I've learned from my mother, and when I say this, please don't assume that I'm standing here for the Miss World competitions, because these kind of answers come on that stage only. Work for joy and empowerment, which has been somewhere at the back. I have never worked for money. I have never worked for status. I have never worked to create a bank balance. I think the only thing which has been always in front of my eyes was a listener. So for 17 years, you won't believe, I did not celebrate any festival, New Year, special occasion with my family, because I was at the radio studio. And interestingly, my family was always understanding, they believed, and I continued to do it. I faced another issue when I wanted to talk about my cultural diversity on air. Remember, my father was a Muslim, my mother is a Catholic. I married a Sardar, by the way. So that's how I became Simran Kohli. I remember when I was going around with my husband, he's a proper pagadi wala Sardar. He came to me and he said, "Yaar, tumhe Musalman hi hona tha." I was Fiza Khan at that time, and I was having an affair with him. He was Chetan Kohli. He said, "Yaar, tumhe Musalman hi hona tha." I said, "Wait, listen, technically I'm a Catholic also. See if that works better." He said, "Satyanash." But then, of course, we got married, and I have the most amazing in-laws in the world. So I don't know, somewhere, somehow I've been very lucky to get the right kind of people with me. So I was talking about my religious diversity. A lot of the radio stations did not want me to talk about this on air. I continued to do it, and you won't believe how many times, and you have never heard these calls on air, parents have called me crying that my daughter is a Muslim, she loves a Hindu, kaise kare, and the father used to listen to my show, so I'm talking to them, or youngsters have called me, and I somehow felt that whatever I am on air is affecting the way people are reacting outside. Many times, once or twice, I lost my job also because of this. Then they said, "Please don't say you're married, you have a daughter, you have a husband," because people have a certain image of an anchor. I said, why? If I'm married, if I have a daughter, then I used to, I ask you today, you listen to radio, you listen to FM radio, how many of the anchors talk about being married or having kids or husband? Because they are living in a zone. I don't know why we create these boundaries, कि लोग ऐसा सोचेंगे, लोग वैसा सोचेंगे. I believe if you're talking about joy and empowerment, people वही सोचेंगे जो आप बोलना चाह रहे हो. उसके अलावा वो कुछ नहीं सोचेंगे. Okay, so 2017, I'm like this really happening, 2014, I'm like this really happening hot shot radio jockey, and then I say कि नहीं अब बहुत हो गया, अब radio jockey नहीं करनी, अब कुछ और करते हैं, and I get the offer to be a CEO of a radio station, and that's where suddenly something clicked. Then I realized, am I still bringing joy and empowerment to everyone, or am I getting taken up by the there's this thing of looking good. Now I'm so much into looking good. इतने साल ये किया, अब ये किया, अब ये किया, अब CEO बन गए. And that's when I quit. I quit everything. I quit radio in 2014. And then I launched my NGO, which was called Speak for Change Foundation. The journey was not easy, but then I had decided that now, if it is about joy and empowerment, how can I do that? And I'll tell you how it began, how that altercation began with the radio station. I had gone to Tihar to interview Vimla Mehra. She was the DG. This is 2013. And she said, we are doing interviews, prisoner interviews, ताकि उनका selection हो जाए नौकरियों में. How can you help? So I said, I'll come and train them. I went back to the radio station and they refused. They said, it doesn't look good. थोड़ा थोड़ा करो, ठीक है, जो look good, looking good के लिए ठीक है, but don't get too involved, we don't want. So I said, no, but I want to do it. So it was an impasse and a lot of other things happened and I quit. I went back to Tihar. I set up the first ever radio studio in Tihar jail. I have been training those prisoners non-stop. I have become an integral part of their lives. They are running that radio station themselves because they cannot have a commercial radio station or a community radio station. Now we have filed a PIL, public interest litigation, wanting to fight why can't Tihar jail have a community radio station. So and again, there are many like-minded people who are associated with us. Then Speak for Change did something called Miss Trans Queen India. This was the first ever transgender beauty contest which has happened in the country. It happened in August. It has been happening abroad for a number of days. We have become the training partners for the transgenders. They will be representing India and Thailand sometime in April. And there is, of course, no monies involved here, because there are lots of people who are involved in just bringing equality to the table, whether it's a transgender, man, woman. And like I told you, it's very difficult for me to identify with that. So whenever I see that kind of injustice or inequality, I feel this just cannot be accepted. This is not the way of life. Then I've started working with UN organizations, especially UNICEF. So the idea, when I say that I want to bring joy and empowerment to people, it does not mean that it will happen only when I am there. Suppose I'm not there, then what happens to the joy and empowerment? So my purpose right now is to create platforms which are self-driven. So even if I'm not there, you've created something that people can take forward. As a part of that initiative, we have started something called Radio for Child Awards, which is the first of its kind CSR awards for children's health. So radio jockeys have been doing a lot of CSR activities, tobacco, cancer, a lot of other things. But there aren't any radio jockeys who are talking about children's health. What is the biggest problem? Cybercrime. So with UNICEF, what we do is that we identify certain radio stations. For example, in North India, we'll identify certain radio stations. We call the radio jockeys and producers. UNICEF tells me what they want those radio professionals to be told, and we organize trainings. Once those trainings are done, we tell those radio professionals to go do something on air, send us a clipping, and we'll do the awards. So this award is now in its third leg. UNICEF is in the process of tying up with the radio awards internationally. They are talking to them. So the idea is that even if I'm not in the picture, Radio for Child is something that has started on its own. Then we are in the process of launching an online radio station which is specifically for women empowerment. So, and when I say women empowerment, it means showcasing women talents, women achievements, everything women across the world. So the idea was, so in a nutshell, if you ask me what has really worked in me realizing this dream was, I stopped fighting people who did not like me. I stopped fighting people who gossiped about me. I stopped fighting people for my rights who were stupid. I started fighting for my dreams. I started fighting for my vision. I started fighting to make a difference. And I have realized when you give up the small fights, the big wins start to happen. Thank you so much.